All right, let's talk about something we all deal with every single day. Have you ever agreed to do something and like 5 minutes later thought to yourself, wait, why did I say yes to that? Or maybe you've been on the other side, trying to get a great idea across and it just falls flat. Well, today we're pulling back the curtain on the hidden psychology of influence. We're going to dive into the architecture of what makes persuasion work and how to do it ethically. So let's start with a big question. Why is getting to yes such a big deal? Honestly, it's because our entire world is basically built on it. I mean, think about it. From trying to land a deal at work to just deciding with your friends where to grab dinner, persuasion is how we connect, how we collaborate, and how we move forward together. But here's the really cool part. Getting to yes isn't some kind of magic trick or just dumb luck. Nope, it's actually a science. Researchers like Robert Cialdini have spent decades studying this stuff, and what they've found is that influence works based on predictable, universal patterns in human behavior. And it all really boils down to 6 core principles. You can think of these as the psychological shortcuts or triggers that guide our decisions, a lot of the time without us even noticing. So, you ready? Let's break them down one by one. Okay, first up, reciprocity. This one is baked deep into our DNA. It's this fundamental social rule that says we feel obligated to give back to others what they've first given to us. It's that powerful, almost automatic feeling that you need to repay a debt, no matter how small. And you've totally felt this before. Picture this. You're walking through a warehouse store, and someone hands you a little cube of cheese on a toothpick. It's a free sample, but suddenly you feel this little twinge of pressure to actually buy the whole block, right? That tiny, unsolicited gift just created a social IOU, making it way harder to just smile and walk away. And you know, that feeling of obligation leads us right into our second principle, commitment and consistency. As humans, we have this obsessive desire to be and to appear consistent with the things we've already said or done. Once we take a stand or make a choice, we feel this pressure from both inside and outside to stick with it.
This is the classic foot-in-the-door technique. There was this famous study where researchers asked people if they'd put a tiny 3-inch drive safely sticker in their window. Most said yes. A few weeks later, they went back and asked those same people if they'd put a huge, ugly drive carefully billboard on their front lawn. And guess what? They were way more likely to say yes than the people who were never asked about the sticker. That little yes paved the way for a much bigger one.
So we try to be consistent with our own past actions, but what happens when we're in a new situation and we're just not sure what to do? That's when social proof kicks in. We look around at what other people are doing to figure out how we should act. The more people we see doing something, the more we think it must be the right thing to do. It's that whole safety and numbers instinct. You see this play out all the time. Imagine you're in a new town, you're hungry, and you see 2 restaurants right next to each other. One is totally empty. The other one has a line out the door. Which one do you automatically assume has better food? The one with the line, right? Of course. You're using the crowd as proof of quality, without knowing anything else. So we follow the crowd, but you know who else we follow? The leader. And that brings us to principle number 4, authority. We are just wired to respect and listen to people who we see as credible experts. It's a mental shortcut, really. Instead of having to figure out every complex decision ourselves, we just trust the judgment of someone who seems to know what they're talking about. I mean, come on, you've heard this a million times in commercials, right? As recommended by 4 out of 5 dentists. That simple line is a masterclass in using the authority principle. It doesn't bother you with data or charts, it just outsources the decision to a group of experts, which makes you feel a lot safer about choosing that toothpaste. Now, it's not just lab coats and diplomas that persuade us. It's also people we just plain like. This is our 5th principle, and it's probably the one that feels the most obvious, liking. We are so much more likely to say yes to requests from people that we know and like. But what's really fascinating is what the science says actually makes us like someone in the first place. See, it's not just about being best friends. Liking is triggered by a few key things. We tend to like people who are similar to us, people who give us genuine compliments, and people who we work together with to achieve a common goal. All of these things build a connection. They build rapport, and that opens the door for influence. And that brings us to our 6th and final principle, the one that taps directly into our modern-day FOMO, our fear of missing out. It's scarcity. For whatever reason, opportunities just seem way more valuable to us when they are less available. The idea that we could potentially lose something plays a massive role in our decisions. Just think of the phrases that get your heart racing a little bit when you're shopping. Limited time offer. Only 2 seats left at this price, while supplies last. All of these trigger our scarcity sensor, creating this sense of urgency that tells us if we don't act right now, we could lose out on this opportunity for good.
So, let's do a quick recap. We've got reciprocity, the need to repay, commitment and consistency, the need to stick to our choices, social proof, following the crowd, authority, trusting the experts, liking, saying yes to people we like, and scarcity, wanting what we might not be able to have. These are the 6 big engines of persuasion. But just knowing how the engine works isn't enough.
And this is maybe the most important part of this whole conversation. This knowledge is powerful stuff, and with that power comes a huge responsibility. It's like these principles or tools, right? You can use a hammer to build a beautiful house, or you can use that same hammer to smash a window. The tool itself is neutral. Everything depends on how you decide to use it.
So what's the difference between doing this right and doing this wrong? Well, it's actually pretty simple. Ethical persuasion is all about informing, clarifying, and creating a situation where everyone benefits. It's a win-win. Manipulation, on the other hand, uses these exact same principles to deceive, to coerce, and to get a selfish gain, a classic win-lose. At the end of the day, the goal here isn't just to be more persuasive. The real goal is to be both ethical and effective. The kind of influence that actually builds trust, that inspires people, and that creates lasting change is always built on a foundation of honesty and mutual respect. So now you have the blueprint. You understand the architecture of influence. And I guarantee you're going to start seeing these principles absolutely everywhere you look. So the real question, the one I want to leave you with, is this. Now that you know them, how are you going to use them? Thanks for tuning in.